You know, friends, we read in the 86th Psalm these magnificent words of verse 12. I give thanks to you, O Lord my God, with my whole heart, and I will glorify your name forever. Whole heart, forever. All of it, all the time. Everything, and from this time, forevermore. Those are pretty big words. R.C. Sproul used to say, you know, forever is a very long time, and everything is an awful lot. And yet the psalmist is willing to say, that's what I'm striving for. And you know, some days in these times that we're in, it's hard to give thanks, isn't it? We're a couple of days into this new vaccine passport thing. Maybe you, like I, have been asked a couple of times. My mom is visiting here from Thunder Bay, and we're having a terrific time. And Pam and I have taken her out a couple of times. And just yesterday, we had to show our vaccine passport before we could actually sit down to eat a meal. Later today, Mom and I were out for a burger. And as I was getting ready to pay, the lady was asking me through her mask. And of course, I couldn't quite understand what she was saying. And I realized, oh, right, I've got to show this my proof of vaccine if we're going to sit down in the restaurant. You know, we just had a federal election and nobody's happy about it. It's a $600 million waste of time to have 6 seats shuffled in the entire country 2 years early, and you know, what's the point? Nobody seems to be very happy. Nobody seemed to win. The existing government got back in and nobody else made many gains, and a couple of people shuffled a few things around. You know, we're going back to the crisis time of the COVID numbers going up and different provinces putting restrictions in place. And in fact, it's been pouring rain for 2.5 days in Toronto, and it can be stressful. It can be hard to find things to give thanks for. But I'll tell you that it's those very times that we must press and strive to recognize that God is not only always good, he is always good, but he's not only always good. He's good all the time, so that all the time it's always worth giving thanks to the Lord. Always. There's always evidence of grace out there that are worth focusing on. And we do have to look for them. Thomas Chisholm, writing Great is Thy Faithfulness, said, morning by morning new mercies I see. Well, that's not the promise of Jeremiah. In Lamentations chapter 3, he said, your mercies are new every morning. Thomas Chisholm says, well, we see them. I think we got to go looking for them to be sure that we see them. And more to the point, to be sure that we respond to seeing them with thanksgiving. Well, the psalmist gives us a hint, doesn't he? In verse 13, which immediately follows what we just read. Because. Why should I give thanks like this? Because, for great is your steadfast love towards me. You delivered my soul from the depths of the grave, from Sheol. He says, because your steadfast love is always there, it's always worth me giving thanks for. And because your steadfast love is just that, steadfast, then my entire being, my entire heart, the seat of my affections, as Piper calls it, must seek to always be giving you thanks with all that I have. So we tend to compartmentalize our lives sometimes, don't we, brothers and sisters? We see it most clearly on Sunday mornings. It's one of the worst mornings of the week for you with family sometimes, isn't it? It seems to be the worst time with traffic. It seems to be the worst time to pick out something to wear. It seems the car didn't start. You know, the kids are upset. We forgot something. You know, we're not feeling great. You know, we ran out of razor blades or hairspray or something. You know what I mean? Those little things that we go, oh, it's so meaningless, it doesn't matter. Yeah, it doesn't matter until it happens to you, right? It doesn't matter if it happens to you at that particular time. That's the day that the devil's working overtime, that the world, the flesh, and the devil are all coming at us. And yet we come to Sunday morning, hey, how you doing? Great, good. Yeah, let me sing about the greatness of God. How great is our God? Sing with me. And we're thinking, I know God's objectively great, but experientially, it just seems like this world is one great big disappointment. It's at those times, brothers and sisters, that we have to come back and cling to the things that we know. I know you've heard me say that many times. But in the midst of those kind of difficult moments that we find it hard to give thanks, it's not the time for new revelation. It's a time for reviewing what we've already seen, what we've already known, and to give thanks in light of the fact that God's steadfast love has not ceased. The psalmist goes on in a very powerful psalm here. Let me just back up a couple of verses. There is none like you among the gods in verse 8, nor are there any works like yours. All nations you have made shall come and worship before you, O Lord, and shall glorify thy name, for you are great and do wondrous things. You alone are God. Listen to his aspiration, what he cries out. What's he cry out in verse 11? Teach me your way, O Lord, that I may walk in your truth. Unite my heart to fear thy name. Let me walk in your truth. It is true. It's true that God is good. It's true that there's always something to give thanks for. Even in that situation you're thinking of right now, when you're pushing back on this video going, if you only knew, if you only knew. I don't know. God knows. And God's not saying our thanksgiving is based on our circumstances. It's to be rooted in the fact of his steadfast love for us. Look around today, brothers and sisters. Think through the kind of blessings we have of being part of Downsview Baptist Church, of living in this great city of Toronto, of living in this marvelous province of Ontario, in this 1 in a million countries like Canada, living as we are with the revelation of God in our hands, with reason upon reason upon reason upon reason to complain, but really 1,000+ reasons to give thanks if we'd but look for it. God promises his steadfast love is just that, continuous, steadfast. So with all that I have and all the time, I seek to praise his name. It is a very good exercise and a great antidote to discouragement and despondency in these days. I want to be thankful for a vaccine more than I want to be angry about a vaccine passport. I want to be grateful for the frontline workers in the hospitals we have, rather than being discouraged that they are being overrun in some areas. And I find myself looking around at a church family and being grateful for the people are there, rather than finding myself bummed because certain people haven't come back yet. I want to be grateful for what we're striving to do as a church family, that we've been outside for all this time rather than one Sunday 2 weeks ago that it ended with a bit of rain. I hope to be outside this coming Sunday morning again, 10 o'clock at the church. Have a look in advance at Psalm 138. We looked at this a couple of years ago, but we're going to go there this week just to be very intentional about the heaviness and the weightiness of the first chapter of Galatians, about getting the gospel right and living in light of it. But I just want to take a very intentional path of thanksgiving and think about Thanksgiving, the kind of things we can be grateful for. And perhaps God might be pleased to equip and prepare us all the more for that. Steve and my wife Pam and our friend Akshaya are all going to come and have a special time of musical worship, perhaps a little bit of an extended time of singing, and we'll look at Psalm 138 together. So we hope you can join us. Really looking forward to it this Sunday morning in particular. Okay, friends, see you soon. Cheers.